Welcome to the Relationships Inside Out podcast with Doctors Gregory Siebert and Kimberly Murray, licensed marriage and family therapists. Join them on this journey as they explore the ins and outs of relationships.
So welcome, Relationships Inside Out. Today we're going to talk about just couples therapy in general and some misconceptions about it, maybe some expectations to have, things like that.
I often have people come in and say things like, I don't know what to expect. I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Or we talk about in the therapist world that couples come when it's the 11th hour. Once shit has already hit the fan, we're thinking about divorce. That's when I come to couples therapy.
Yeah.
And we're here to tell you, maybe not. Maybe it's coming in for, I don't know what you call it. I call it tune-ups, right? Like if we are having any kind of discord, or even just like, hey, we're going through a transition, or hey, we haven't talked about some things in a while.
Yeah, I call it relationship maintenance.
Love it.
Just like your car. And this is going back to prioritizing relationship. And prioritizing relationship doesn't always have to be fun. Couples therapy can be helpful in getting a little more insight that you don't have. We get these routines, and maybe my partner's doing something different, because as we grow together, sometimes we grow apart in certain aspects. Our values change, things like that. So couples therapy, I think, is very valuable in the sense of, what can we learn about ourselves to grow? It doesn't have to be because something's wrong.
Yep. I love that maintenance analogy, right? When we think about our car, we don't wait until it's broken on the side of the road.
I mean, some of us do, unfortunately.
We hopefully are getting the oil changed, the tires rotated, right? Like we're doing those little actions to prevent the major breakdown later.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, this goes back to our family of origins that we had, the episode recently, and we don't always bring the best skills or things into the relationship, and even though we're doing what we know, doesn't mean it's right for our partner and who they are as a person. I mean, we're bringing two cultures together. Even if they're the same ethnicity and same religion, you still have different family dynamics that speak to different cultures that are coming together, and just learning about that. What does that look like? And going for therapy and the therapist finding something wrong that you didn't know, that's okay too.
I think people hear therapy and it insinuates that there's a problem.
Yeah.
We're broken. So for us to go would be to admit that our relationship is problematic or unhealthy. I think about even like with my husband, I've been dating him since my junior year of high school, and we've obviously changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Not always in the best of ways, and not always together. Sometimes it's in divergence.
Yeah.
And so during that process, can we go to couples therapy as we're growing, as we're taking on new jobs or going through a pandemic, like whatever stressors, but doing that kind of like maintenance or tune-up work.
And it holds the couple accountable, because we don't prioritize it. By going to therapy, it forces us to think more about the relationship. And it could be something as simple of, oh yeah, I really haven't thought about my needs lately. This is what I need, and being able to express that. I've had a lot of couples to where they say something and I'm like, wait, did you ever share that with your partner? Not until now. And
every week.
And just understanding of, okay, well, why haven't we shared that? What's going on? How can we improve the dynamics that are happening? Oh, there's a stressor in your life.
Yeah.
How do we manage that together? And I think, there's that realm of relationship coach. And I think people are attracted to that because they're like, well, it's not therapy. But therapists, especially licensed marriage and family therapists, are specifically trained in this, licensed in this, and can be coach and therapist.
Can we just point that out really quick? So people are attracted to this idea of coach, and I want there to be a massive disclaimer of coaches. There is no legal or ethical standards, for one. There's no mandated training, and there's no mandated license. So anybody could be a coach. Whereas if we go with a licensed therapist, there is confidence in that they're trained. So we're not, the risk of harm or thing is much lower.
And I think in a way to express safety is there's an ethical standard to hold confidentiality, right? But that therapist, just because that therapy word might be, not so friendly to some, and they might think that, well, if I go here, something's wrong with my relationship. It doesn't have to be. And they can be your coach. And there's a lot of couples that I work with that are building and growing. And I call it, for some couples, leveling up.
I love that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look bad, right? Sometimes for my husband and I, we will do like tune-ups or maintenance. And sometimes it's just I haven't been feeling really heard recently, or I don't feel like I'm hearing what you're trying to tell me, or I feel this disconnection, this like undertone of we're having sex less, we're communicating less. What's going on here? And if we can't pinpoint it ourselves or come up with a solution that works ourselves, bringing in that support.
Yeah.
Even as therapists, right? We have a ton of these tools in our tool belt, yet we don't have all of them. And it's a whole different ballgame to apply it to our own relationship. So even as therapists, we go to couples therapy.
To grow, to learn. And then you're like, wait, oh yeah, that could be a problem over time to erode. And also just finding someone that can give a different perspective that brings creativity to what can you do to connect?
What are some of the things you work with couples when it comes to like maintenance type therapy?
How to build intimacy. I really like the intimacy thing because I think that is one of the first sacrifices in relationships when stress comes in. So we find out what makes them feel close and connected, and how can we integrate that into their daily lives. So making the relationship more of a priority, feeling that connection. Because when we start dating, we make that a priority, right? It's exciting. Oh, I can't wait to hang out with them. And then we get married, then we have kids, and it's like,
they just get bumped down.
We haven't done that in a year.
Down,
yeah,
right?
We haven't done that in a year or so. So I like just exploring, one is how their dynamics have been to this point and the strengths that they have that have really made it to where they are now, because there are strengths, right? They're together for a reason. And then again, how can we grow? How can we build this intimacy, and even more than we anticipated? How about for you?
Even like the mutual accountability. What can we both do? Right? Issues aside from abuse rarely, if ever, are one-sided. And so how can we as a couple grow? Not just, okay, my partner's not listening, how can I get them to listen? But what do I need to do? Do I need to switch up my approach? Do I need to change my communication style? Whatever it might be. But that's a big piece. And then also often for maintenance, it's going back to what you were saying, but when was the last time you played? When's the last time you went on a date? It's talking about new ways to spice it up. Sometimes we get in the mundane of just the minutia of like, okay, we got to have sex this week, or okay,
make it quick.
Wake up,
do I have
work
to take
out.
off all my clothes, or can we just have a
right? We got 10 minutes or less. But it's that just monotony of wake up, put my clothes on, go to work, come home, feed the kids, go to bed, repeat.
That's the key, breaking that monotony.
And that is, we all get stuck in it, right? Yeah.
But maybe people are comfortable with monotony, depending on their anxiety around change. But
sure,
there is something to be said about spicing up. How do we get back to that feeling that we had when we first got together and made it exciting and made it about us? And because there's a lot of barriers in this, kids and daycare, and so navigating that, what does that look like? What are your support systems?
And how do I say this? How do I still, I want to say entice, I don't know if that's the right word, but like intrigue my partner? How do I still show up as something more than just a friend or a roommate? How do I engage him as my lover? How do I engage him as my confidant, as a leader, as a playful best friend, right? How do I attend to all those pieces? It doesn't mean that we're in crisis, but it might mean like, hey, we're feeling something's kind of going wrong, right? Same with our health. Like when we feel something's going wrong, like I'm not feeling great, we typically don't wait until we're in a coma, right? Or at least I hope not. We're attending to it long before that. Mental health, relationship health should be no different.
Yeah, and I would argue that people put relationship even further past mental health.
Oh, totally agree.
It's often taken for granted. It'll be there. This isn't a priority.
We hear I don't know how we got here.
But
when did this happen?
But this is the partner or partners that you're choosing to go through life with, to go through the stress with, to deal with the shit with. It is important because what happens in that dynamic, like in the romantic relationship, the couple relationship, it affects parenting. It affects your relationship with other family members. It affects your work.
And that idea of empty nesters, right? Okay, you're focusing all on your kids for 18 years. What happens when they leave and it's just you and your hubby sitting there?
That purpose.
Now I'm looking at my partner like, I have no idea who you are, because I've been focused on my children. I've been focused on my job. So when we retire, empty nest, it's jarring. Whereas if we can do tune-ups, we stay connected.
That is an intriguing dynamic for me when couples come in, and more recently since COVID, and they've been forced to stay home.
Yeah.
And now the kind of maybe the imperfections of how they've done things before are coming to light, are more present, because these were often avoided or escaped through our lifestyle. And just examining that and exploring that, and what did you do before? How did this work before? And how can we change this? And it's almost like building a new homeostasis or relationship, which is exciting.
Exciting. Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, is use it as a point of like adventure, exploration. Okay, my partner, let's face it, you're never going to be back to that same lustful point as when you first started dating or first had sex. At least probably not.
Wah.
I know. So it's finding it other ways. Finding, okay, as a parent, maybe it's getting creative about how do we have sex without the kids catching us? How do we,
like a game? Or
like how, instead of like, oh, we've got kids, so we just can't.
Oh.
How do we say like, okay, like let's tuck in this room. Let's do it at this time. Maybe let's on a lunch break, whatever it might be. Find those ways to connect in a new, playful and exciting way, rather than just letting that monotony kind of take over.
Let it go by the wayside. I find it so interesting because, again, coming in the 11th hour, but before that, we let it go by the wayside and we're prioritizing, like say, parenting. That's a common one that I see. If that romantic relationship's not in place, the parenting is impacted.
100%. And your kids watch your model, right? So if they see that my parents didn't hug, kiss, touch, they're probably not going to either. If they see my parents fought all the time in front of us, they're likely to repeat that pattern. So if we can model to them what healthy affection and respect looks like, if we can model to them, hey, mom and dad love each other and we're going to go to therapy and we need support too, right? That can be so impactful for the narratives our children set up.
Yeah. And it brings up a good point, because I love also exploring, obviously I love everything couples apparently, but I love it going back and exploring each partner's narratives and family of origin with each other, because then it gives insight to the partner to help bring compassion. Maybe they've been fine, but there's like a little thing that's been kind of like a thorn in their side in the relationship. It's like, oh, I don't like when my partner does this. Having that, time in couples therapy to really explore what's coming up can help depersonalize it and maybe have some empathy and compassion of, oh, this is something that's tough for them.
So sometimes couples therapy is this more like maintenance tune-up kind of thing. And sometimes it is in crisis. So how does that look different for you in your practice of maintenance therapy versus like, we're having a really hard time and need you to almost like, I hear couples say, save my relationship, but as therapists, we load that sentence.
Yeah, that's not our job.
But when they come to you and say like, save my relationship, how do those look different for you?
So couples that come for crisis, I think it's a different set of skills. You might talk in this when people are doing maintenance and helping that, but a little more crisis management stuff. Timeout, how do we self-soothe, individual stuff. Whereas the maintenance stuff, we're getting really into like the deeper, intimate stuff. In the crisis, I'm really starting off at least very basic skills of putting structure around conversation, making it feel safe.
The surface kind of like, not the surface what am I trying to say here? Not content. What's the opposite? Process. The surface process.
Yeah. The surface process.
Struggle.
Yeah, because how do we navigate conflict if we can't feel safe in it? If we're ever defensive or shutting down or critical, it's not going to be effective. And so working with the skills to really calm down that negative interaction cycle first, and then we can start processing some of the deeper stuff, which is what I like to do with the couples with maintenance of let's go dig a little deeper. What do you still appreciate about your partner? How can you still show that?
Yeah. I think about it too. Like I'll have couples stand and we need to fix a specific issue, a specific pattern. Whereas some of the more maintenance couples, our sessions are a little more spaced out. And maybe it's talking about, I have couples do unity statements or couples mission statements. I have every couple do it, where you write a mission statement or a unity statement of who do we want to be as a couple or as a family. So for us, it'd be like, I want our house to be led by Christ. I want us to find joy, whatever it might be. And then I have them post it in their bedroom.
So they developing this together or their own mission statements and sharing? Oh, together.
Together.
Oh, I love that.
Yep. And then I have them do that. and they write it out, and it can be like, we're going to be a couple founded on respect and whatever. And then once they finalize it, I give them the next task of planning a date where they paint it out or something and then put it in their bedroom, so that every day they're looking at this unity statement.
Yeah.
And that can be harder to do when we're in crisis, right? Because the idea of being unified might be difficult. But that's a place we can get to, or a place talking about dreams or hopes, rather than just, God, we're fighting every day. This shit sucks. We can instead also look at, okay, right now is a little bit of a speed bump. We'll get through it. And where do we want to go from here?
And I like the word unity, or like you said, unified. I think that is, to me, an ideal position for healthy couples, is the unified front in many aspects of their dynamics. So unified front with their in-laws or extended family, unified front as parents, right? And so that unified front is really important to maintain. That's where that relationship maintenance helps. And part of that relationship maintenance is also exploring, well, what could potentially erode this relationship over time? There is some stuff that isn't always fun, but helpful.
I think in that, like, it's important to note, no couple is bulletproof here. Just because you're not fighting doesn't mean you're healthy. Just because we match in all these areas doesn't mean that you can't have disruption. So even when you look at other people's relationships and you say, oh, they don't need couples therapy, they're perfect. They never fight. Trust me when I say no couple is perfect, and every couple can use a tune-up every once in a while. Even
us, as even though we're trained in this, we could use that checkup.
Yep. And giving yourself that grace, right? I think another piece of this couples therapy is, and every therapist has a different way of doing this. This is just my model of how I do this. I often see the partners individually too, if they want to. And there's risk, right, in terms of bias or in terms of secrets. So I have a firm no secret keeping policy, but it allows them to work on their own shit in tandem with, okay, I'm working on my reactiveness. I'm working on this stuff. And now I want to bring it back into the partnership.
That's a great point, because what happens in the couple relationship is not independent of what we got going on for ourselves.
Yeah.
And to me, I always talk about this as our responsibility is to bring our best self. And sometimes we're not always our best self. We're human, and that's okay. So like you said, going to individual therapy, maybe individual maintenance could be helpful in the grand scheme of the couple stuff, because again, the couple dynamics are not independent of what we have going on for ourselves.
What are some of the people bring up a bunch of these? What are some of like the myths or things that people bring up to you about therapy, or some of their worries or things they've heard and things like that?
I mean, the biggest concern is that something's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's facing this idea of we're not perfect. That's really the biggest one that I see off the bat, is accepting the fact that we might need some additional support.
Yeah.
Which is kind of strange to me. And I think this still exists, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a time where everyone was like, oh, my therapist told me this, but no one says my couple therapist, our couple therapist.
It's so true. Such a good point. I've never thought about it. True.
So there's a lot of stigma that if we go to couples therapy, it's because something's wrong. And that's, I think, what, to me, the essence of this episode is. It's not because something's wrong all the time.
And if there is, that's okay.
Good for you to have the strength to want to go do that.
Absolutely.
And you'll be in a better position than those who don't do these things and go through this mundaneness and however else they cope, You
don't have to white knuckle it. Another myth that I hear is that we can save a relationship, that it's on the therapist to fix this.
Yeah.
When you go into therapy, do your therapist a favor and show up ready to work. Because when you go in thinking, nope, it's my partner's problem, fix my partner, or it's a therapist's job to fix me, to fix us.
My partner.
Oh, God, I hear that all the time.
That makes me cringe the most out of anything.
I'm sorry if you said it to the peeps listening, but it is not our job to fix it. We are simply like a guide on a roadmap, right? But the work is on you and your partner. We're going to give you the tools. We're going to help you process through stuff, help you think of things differently. But at the end of the day, I can't fix your marriage. And your partner can't fix your marriage all by themselves. It takes both.
In the same sense of parenting, of fix my child. Well, let's talk what's going on in your relationship.
It has nothing to do with my relationship. It's only my 4-year-old. Just tiny assholes.
It makes me cringe when I hear, fix my partner. And one thing I look for in the maintenance stage and people wanting to grow, as well as the crisis stage, is how much to accept each partner accept influence in the relationship dynamics. And this is something Gottman talks about is an important predictor for long-term success in relationships. But how much are they willing to look at themselves in the dynamic and be like, this is what I could change to make this better. I can see how my role, even though this is something I've learned and this is normal for me, isn't the best for my partner. So I'm willing to adapt for that. Not, well, my partner has issues. I knew it was them. And I think that's what is some of the challenges of couples therapy, is balancing this need for each partner to be right.
Yeah.
And that often happens in the beginning of, they don't want to be the one that might be an issue. But the reality is both people play a role in that. It's never just one person. Of course, domestic violence, that's a different story.
It's a dance. So showing up ready to go. What's any other myths you've heard?
Well, I don't know if it's a myth, but it's more of this idea of this. People don't understand that our role is also to help people through separation.
Say more about that.
So people have, I guess that would be a myth, is that couples therapy is to save the relationship, but we also help people have an amicable separation. How do we work this? How do we express our feelings and hurt about this loss that we're going to experience? And how do we manage this together? What are the boundaries around this? If you have kids, how are we going to navigate this? I mean, this is so much better than having to go to mediator in court and get that assigned. It's just figuring out, how can we do this together, even if someone doesn't want to. And that's where the hardest part is. If there's a partner who really isn't wanting that separation, is how do we separate amicably? And that can be done through our assistance. I mean, if both are willing, of course. I
tell partners that all the time at the jump of couples therapy. My job is not to save your marriage. My job is to help you both learn healthy ways of coping, of interacting, and to give voice to what feels most healthy for you.
Yeah.
That may be each other and it may not. Yeah. Which is a hard reality to reconcile.
And that does happen. Couples can be in a very good place, and then they come in for maybe one issue or something like that. And then as we start to grow and together, right, in the therapy, and understand a little bit about, maybe this hasn't been the healthiest over time, and they might make that decision to separate. But I think about it as, that is painful and it's loss and it's hurting, but that for them to make that decision and to live the rest of their life in a way that feels more genuine and natural to them, and not in a place where they haven't been the most beneficial for them, I think is important.
I often have couples or individuals come in and think of like the Freudian couch, right? Like what we see on TV of someone laying there and the therapist just talking kind of.
Wait, you don't do that in your therapy room?
No, I know that's shocking.
I have a chase lounge all set up, and
it's more of a dialogue, and it's not just, again, this is a style thing. I tell people all the time, I'm not going to be the therapist that just says, how does that make you feel? It's important to know how you feel, of course. But then I say, and what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Key is, what are you going to do about it? Not what are you going to make your partner do? What are you going to make me do? It's what are you going to do about it?
And one thing I think, and maybe this is a style thing, I hope it's in general with all marriage family therapists, is this idea that couples, you're the experts in your lives.
Yes.
You're the expert in a relationship. And I respect that. And so I'm more than welcome to be challenged, and if I'm off my mark, to correct me. I mean, this is where you're the expert. I'm here to guide along this process and give the skills to help make this more effective, right?
And we're not going to be the best fit. So when we talk to people about therapy, I'll hear clients often say, oh, I have this terrible therapist, therefore I haven't wanted to do therapy for 10 years. Therefore, I'll never do it again. Every therapist is different. Hear me, people in the back, hear me. Every therapist is different. Just because you don't jive with one doesn't mean anything about the other therapists in this world.
Yeah.
It means that one wasn't a good fit. So find someone new.
Yeah. And I think a tip that I have for clients that I'm helping them find other ones, because I'll provide resources if they're not a good fit, is I think looking at their license and training is important.
Absolutely. Say more about that.
So there's many licenses, right? There's licensed clinical social worker, licensed mental health counselor, licensed marriage family therapist.
And they're all in acronyms, which makes it even harder. LPC, LCSW, LMFT.
Yeah. And even within that, there's differences in training, and finding one that speaks to what you're going for, because, licensed marriage and family therapists, we're very, very highly trained in systems and families and couples. Somebody who maybe goes to a licensed clinical social work program might not get that training to that extent, and it might not be their specialty. So, and they might even turn you away and say, this, I'll have to refer. So,
but they might not, which is the scary part.
That can be, yeah, if that's not their area of expertise. But just being very diligent about what is their training. Oh, it says they work with this, do that. And then when we look at consult, just look at it as an interview. You're interviewing the therapist. Yep. You're interviewing us to say, is this somebody that is going to understand me or not? Like, how do they see working with what I'm bringing in? And asking that question of, you know, how do you work? What does it look like when you're working with couples that are suffering or doing this? What can I expect in therapy? And I think that's very appropriate and important to make sure we get that fit, because like Kim just kind of mentioned, is we don't necessarily meet people who are willing to have maybe integrity to accept that they don't have experience in that realm and really are just a really good person, want to help people, but you may not be getting the most quality of treatment that's a fit for you. And it might be a style that's just not anything that aligns with how you think and believe.
I think about, maybe a bad analogy. I think about, like, if I sit down, I'm like, oh, I really could go for some good lobster right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to Country Buffet. Like, I'm not going to go to the place that's got 50,000 options, pray that they have lobster and pray that it's good.
Yeah.
Right. Just like I'm not going to go to some random therapist and not check into their credentials, not check into their specialties and pray that they treat this one thing I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to pick a seafood restaurant. I'm going to make a knowledgeable choice.
Yeah.
And we put in that effort when we're thinking about food. The same needs to happen here.
Yeah.
Pick the therapist that aligns with your beliefs, aligns with your style, right? My style is niched in a lot of ways, not just my specialty of postpartum parents and stuff. It is also, I'm pretty casual in the way I dress. I am open about my life. Like, I'm not a closed book or what we'd call blank slate by any means. I am really flexible with my clients. I support them in between sessions for free. Not every therapist does that, nor is that a good fit for every person.
Right.
So finding, okay, what is important to me? Is it someone who is really professional, who is clinical? Is it someone who doesn't tell me what to do, but only asks how I feel? Is it someone that...
And maybe somebody needs somebody just to say how I feel and they need a process, right?
Right. And so it's finding for you, not for Susie down the street, not your mom, for you, what is a good fit? Where do I feel safest?
Yeah. And say you go couples therapist, you may find a great fit with somebody who isn't trained in couples. Like, maybe that's just the nature of it. But I think these questions that we're bringing up and factors that we're talking about are to help at least improve your experience earlier on. So it isn't this idea of, I had therapy once, therefore, or I had a bad experience, therefore.
And I just, my hope is that every couple, you hear me, every single couple at some point gets support, at some point does some maintenance. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means you give a shit about your marriage or your relationship and want to give it that time and space to keep it going in a quality and healthy way.
I love that. It means you give a shit.
Yeah.
It tells me you're prioritizing your relationship. And that's a good thing. That's a great sign. I love to see that.
When couples stop fighting, right? I'll have those couples that are like, we don't fight. To me, like, to the average person, be like, wow, that's beautiful. To a therapist, it's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, our relationship might be really suffering. There are really people who get along that well. They're unicorns. Yeah. But often when we stop fighting, we've stopped fighting for the relationship. We've stopped caring to get my needs met and to meet yours.
That, for me, I don't know what it is that you just said, but it brings up this idea and to help shape a little bit more about what to expect in a couples therapy. And if ideally the couples therapist is not going to take sides.
Yes.
It's going to be balanced, and they're there treating the relationship, not each individual and what's going on with the individual and seeing how that kind of works together. It's treating the relationship and how do we get together to make this relationship as the
unified front.
Yeah. I look at the relationship as the client.
I love that. Yeah. The space between you. That's why I say, if you need individual and tandem, no shame in the game.
Yeah.
Right. Because what you bring to the table impacts that relationship. And often we need both, or we might need just a couple sessions individually to sort out some of our own junk. Not even junk that just relates to our partner, right? If I'm bringing in stuff from my family of origin, beliefs about men or leadership or whatever, And that's impacting how I relate to my partner. It has nothing to do with him. That's shit I've got to fix here first, so that then I can show up for my partner.
And it takes some awareness to kind of recognize that.
Oh, absolutely.
And making that call to say, I need a little bit more help and understanding of what's going on for me. I love premarital counseling. Love premarital counseling.
Which doesn't always have to be religious. I want to put that caveat.
A great point.
It often has that association, and it really should be for any couple getting married.
The one concern I have about premarital counseling is there's a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of people who do it, and they do a good job of bringing up the topics that are really important to navigate. But systemically, it's not about the topics. It's not about the finances. It's not about the parenting style. It's, well, it is long term. It's about communicating. It's about the process by which you navigate those.
Process over content.
Finances isn't what made the divorce happen. It's the inability to navigate them. And that's what I love in premarital counseling, is giving the schools the skills and tools to really navigate
They
this.
are schools.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But that's what I really always thought was interesting is I've had couples tell me they're going to premarital, and I'm always curious, like, what did you learn? Oh, that we should talk about this. And like, you should, but how? And that's what I love working on, is how do you navigate this? What are skills to make our relationship effective so we can navigate the shit together, the finances, the parenting at times, right? COVID,
If you get nothing else from this, process over content. If your therapist is drudging you into the content, you might want to switch it up. It is process, because whether you sub in dishes or parenting, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, I don't feel supported. I don't feel heard. That's what needs to shift, not he didn't wash the dishes.
Yeah.
The dishes are just a symbol or beacon for not feeling heard.
Which is that underlying process that we hope to work on to navigate more effectively.
And how do I tell him that? How do I get away from you didn't do the dishes to it hurts me when I feel hurt when I don't feel like there's shared responsibility. I feel hurt when I ask for support and I'm not met with support.
And I would even throw in some validation.
Yeah.
So I love it when this happens. I love when you've done this. And you've done a great job at this stuff. As of lately, I just have not felt some reciprocity, and we've been really pretty good about that. And I just want to check in, see what's happening and what your thoughts are. And is there any area that you might feel the same way?
Love that.
Level the playing field, because this is, there isn't a couple sessions I haven't heard this. Somebody says, that never happens. They never do this. And the reality is they have.
The absolute.
Okay,
that's another takeaway. Don't use absolute language. Always, never. Okay, when you use an absolute, never happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's invalidating.
Yeah.
Especially because when I look at relationships, both partners are typically trying, and it may not be in the way that works best for the other partner, and they may not see it. And that's invalidating to say, I've never felt loved by you. Or I've never felt that you've made an effort.
Never do this.
Yeah. So yeah, no. I would say, thinking about some of the tips for take home, one of the biggest one is couples therapy isn't just because of you're in a crisis, and do not wait to the 11th hour.
While therapists can often help couples recover from there, it is so much harder than if we had been doing that maintenance on the way, right? I take care of my car and get it serviced every few months. That's gonna be a heck of a lot easier to handle than your engine blew, right? At that point,
less expensive then too.
Oh shit, no joke. Same with therapy. If nothing else, let that motivate you. Maintenance therapy is much shorter than crisis therapy. Let's just be real.
And infrequent.
Yes. So that's a good one. Again, process over content. And really trying to attune to a partner and tap into their lived experience, that curiosity, that empathy of, even if it's, hey, I'm not saying I'm really grouchy. Can we work on this together? It doesn't always have to be my partner's being an asshole. Sometimes it's I am.
No, it's never me.
It's never me, but being able to do that. And to be honest, I hear people say, well, other people would judge me. Who gives a single shit if someone else judges you about therapy? Why does it matter? Like, if you stop and ask, why do you care?
Would you rather have a healthy relationship where you feel connected in a safe haven to go to, and that intimacy and that passion, or what Susie Koo or Karen down the road thinks? Yeah.
Drives me nuts when I hear that, because I'm like, they don't have to live in your home every day. And honestly, if people are judging you for getting your relationship into a healthy place, are they really healthy themselves? Are they really trying to advocate and support for your relationship? Are they really someone who should be in your space? Conversation for another day. Something to ponder.
Yeah.
But come in, find a therapist. If you ever need help finding a therapist, reach out to one. Even if they're not a good fit, they should be. And if they're not, they should be. Or you can ask referrals. Do you have some referrals? Some other people I can try?
And it's okay if they're not a fit. It is okay. A lot of us want that to be a fit more important than anything.
Don't white knuckle through because you're afraid of hurting your therapist's feelings. I tell this to people all the time. Like, if I'm not a good fit, great, just tell me. Because therapy isn't for the therapist, it's for you and for your partnership.
Yeah.
Don't white knuckle through. If one of you doesn't feel safe, it's not productive. It's not a good use of your time, your money, your energy. Switch.
Same like a medical doctor.
Yep.
You don't like your primary care provider? I want somebody else. Same thing. Same thing with us. Yeah.
I don't like that buffet. I'm not going to go back. I'm going to go somewhere else. But we don't stop eating. We don't stop going for the lobster.
Yeah.
We just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I love this. As always, if anyone has any questions or any thoughts about couples therapy, or you need referrals in Colorado or Wyoming, don't hesitate to reach out and we'll be happy to help at relationshipsinsideout@gmail.com. This has been Relationships Inside Out, where we kind of demystify what relationships look like and the support that's around them. So thanks for joining.
Yes, thank you.